Hello and welcome to RadioTimes.com's Oscar predictions for 2024. Today we're talking about the Best Supporting Actor and Best Supporting Actress category. Now, out of all the categories, I think, there's not that much predicting going on here. I think it's almost certain who's going to win in each of these categories. Is that something that you would agree with?
I think so. Both of them. I think Da'Vine Joy Randolph in Best Supporting Actress, I think that's got to be a lock. She's won everything.
Yeah.
Like everything. I mean, even, when we were talking about this and talking about the other nominees, it's difficult to remember them at times because they're never going up there and sort of receiving these awards. There's some great work in that category, but I just think she's such a lock at this point.
Yeah, and I think it is a tremendous performance and a thoroughly deserving one. But yeah, as you say, quite often, even when we think it's going one way, there's kind of like a runner-up who they're kind of thinking it's maybe won something, or it's maybe kind of but it's just been kind of domination of this category. I'd say of those nominated, perhaps her closest challenger might be Emily Blunt in Oppenheimer, partly because of just the strength of Oppenheimer in general. It's picking up so many other awards, and her performance it's really good. But I just can't see anyone really.
No, exactly. The only way that happens is if it's just an absolute Oppenheimer sweep.
Yeah.
And people have just voted for it in every category, and somehow that happens. But the way the awards have been going, it's quite clear that Da'Vine Joy Randolph is the favourite, and for good reason. She's brilliant in the movie.
Yeah, I do think what's interesting is maybe kind of who wasn't nominated in this category. Taking nothing away from some of the other nominees, but I think the BAFTAs maybe had a slightly more interesting lineup. So, for example, Claire Foy was nominated for All of Us Strangers, a film which has pretty much been, it's just been completely overlooked by the Oscars. I mean, we could talk about Andrew Scott not being in the race and Paul Mescal as well. And I think, Claire Foy would have been a deserving winner in this category. Again, it's hard to compare the performances, but I think that there's so much emotion in what she does in that film. And similarly, in that category, Sandra Hüller was nominated at the BAFTAs. Now, she is up for an Oscar just in a different category in Best Actress for Anatomy of a Fall. And I do wonder if it's one of those things, it's happened before where someone has been nominated in both categories, but it's quite rare, and I wonder if people have maybe just rallied around one performance of her and not the other one.
I think that's probably partly it. I think also you've just got the factor that the BAFTAs do have slightly more slots in the acting categories than it can be just as simple as that. I mean, there seemed to be a really strong showing at the Oscars for Nyad, so Jodie Foster's nomination sort of makes sense there. I think that wasn't the case for some of the other awards, but again, that just shows how locked in this category is, that none of the other ones are sort of, they're dotting in and out of other categories at other awards bodies. There's no clear second contender, as you say, maybe Emily Blunt, but
yeah, I think someone who was nominated who was considered maybe a little bit of a shock was America Ferrera for her Barbie performance, which again, I don't want to take anything away from her, but I don't really know if that was an Oscar winner. Like, she had a great moment with that speech. I think we were both maybe suggesting maybe that was more in the writing than the performance.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's a good performance, but I don't know that it's exceptional in the same way as some of the other ones up there. Nothing because of her, but it's just the role. The role is essentially, as you say, it's that one speech, and then there's some other bits and pieces here and there. But again, there was sort of a big showing for Barbie in the nominations, and since then we've seen awards after awards that maybe it's not picking up the wins as much as people anticipated.
Yes. Now, Best Supporting Actor, a little bit more debate maybe, but similarly to Da'Vine Joy Randolph in the Best Supporting Actress, there's one person who has been winning all the precursors, and that is Robert Downey Jr. And again, Oppenheimer, brilliant performance. Is there anyone who you can see kind of challenging him?
Well, I mean, there are some other great contenders there, and some other people who do historically win awards and are favourites of awards voters. You've got Robert De Niro, gave a great performance in Killers of the Flower Moon. You've got Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things. They're two amazing performances. It's just they don't seem to have cut through in quite the same way as Robert Downey Jr.
And it's interesting because I think, actually, if you just look at the nominees, this is a category which should be pretty close. I think there's a lot of really deserving people in there. So it's interesting. I can't quite understand why Robert Downey Jr. has run away with it so much. And again, that's not taking anything away from his performance, which I do think is really good. But I thought Robert De Niro, in Killers of the Flower Moon was absolutely brilliant. I think that was such a chilling performance, and I'm surprised that he's not kind of had a little bit more of it. I saw someone tweet recently, it must be devastating for him every awards ceremony hearing Robert De, and then it's Downey Jr. and not De Niro. So I'm surprised he's not kind of been in the conversation a little bit more. Similarly, Mark Ruffalo, I think with Poor Things, there's actually two people that could have ended up getting Best Supporting Actor, because I think Willem Dafoe was also really good in that film. I do wonder if Mark Ruffalo his performance is maybe seen as being a little bit too comedic for the Oscars. As much as Emma Stone is in the running for Best Actress, I think that's a more kind of like all-encompassing, like there's a kind of more going on there. Whereas Mark Ruffalo is kind of playing the kind of caddish kind of like, it's maybe seen as being a little bit too lightweight, maybe.
Yeah, well, a surprisingly similar in some ways performance, a comedic performance, touching on a lot of the same themes, came from Ryan Gosling, who, again, at the start of the awards run, I think when Barbie was picking up a lot of heat, maybe was seen as a contender. That absolutely isn't really the case now. I think he's doing I'm Just Ken performance at the show, and that's probably the big thing that people want to see. I think he would probably be quite surprised to win in that category. I think viewers would definitely be surprised. I can't really see it happening now. Yeah,
and just want to very quickly mention someone who didn't make the nominees at all, who was Charles Melton in May December. Another film we mentioned, Olive Strangers, just before. This is another one which just hasn't really got any traction from awards voters for no reason I can quite understand. I think, Charles Melton is acting opposite two other brilliant performances from Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman in that film, and I think he's excellent. Again, it's a very complex role, and he plays it so kind of delicately. I can't quite fathom why he's not really been in the race at all. But I guess again, it just speaks to it's a really good category this year. I think there's a lot of really good performances in there. And there's always going to be some that miss out.
Well, and I do think when it comes to sort of, awards fair, I suppose he's quite new on the scene in the same way as Dominic Sessa, who picked up, a BAFTA nomination but couldn't quite convert it to an Oscar nomination. For him, it's literally his first performance, an incredible start. Voters are probably thinking, well, in a few years' time, if he keeps putting in great performances, then it will be his shot. But,
exactly.
It's very early.
Yeah, very early in the career. So, Best Supporting Actor and Best Supporting Actress, are they foregone conclusions, or will there be a last-minute upset? Let us know what you think in the comments below.